Welcome. It is June 25th, 2026, and we are talking about difficult interactions, self-trust, and letting go today. I hope you guys have been enjoying my series. I just finished the 3-part on this topic. I hope it was helpful for you guys. I actually had a podcast interview this week, and the host was so funny because he had read the articles and watched the videos, and he said, yeah, it's so interesting because you had all those difficult interactions. You were cast as the villain, and you didn't seem to react to it at all. How do you do that? And I went, I don't really know what you're talking about. I was totally reacting to it. That's kind of what the whole series was about, that no matter how much you practiced and where you are in life, difficult conversations will happen and you may get triggered. It's not about reaching some magical finish line where you no longer react to people around you and everything is fine. You trust yourself. You can let things go super easy. It's really being more human than that and really realizing that I'm going to get my feathers ruffled every now and then. My boat will rock as waves hit, for sure. I think the biggest teaching that I discovered over the past month or so that I've been working myself through it and, publishing this content is that I'm very grateful that I have the tools that I do. And more than anything, I'm very grateful that I allow myself the grace to work myself through the process. So I hope that kind of helps just frame this conversation and know that no matter what, it's just human that you get activated around certain people and that there may be certain types of interactions that get you a little bit more triggered than others. It's okay. Like I said, big thing is we work our way through it. What do I mean by difficult interactions? I think might be an interesting place to start. It's wherever you don't feel settled, I would say. So many of us think in terms of like the negative of this, where someone's angry and they're yelling or someone's unhappy with you. Again, that one, I think it was in the podcast I did, we talked a lot about projections and people kind of throwing their stuff on you. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the reality of the situation or who you are as a human, which I find fascinating. But when you do get that stuff thrown at you, that kind of glom that comes on top that they're interacting with, it's just important to know that that's them, not you, and that it's not just the positive side, the negative side of it, the people who are upset with you that do that. Sometimes it's those positive projections that get kind of tangly as well. So kind of keep that in mind as we talk today. Difficult interactions are anything that have you at unease or living up to other people's expectations of what you should be. That's not necessarily the anger monsters or the kind of more negative conversations. It may actually be in some of the positive projections you're getting as well. So if you're not at ease, if you don't feel freedom in showing up and using your voice and actually expressing yourself, or if you do so and you leave afterwards and you've got that like jibber jabber through your head going constantly, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. You're not at ease with that interaction. So how do we have self-trust in that circumstance? And how do we let those interactions, and most importantly, the projections, start to go and fade away? We're going to dive into that a little bit with some questions I got from you guys. I know it's a little hard to be here live. I appreciate those of you guys who are, but also sending in questions ahead of time super helps too. So one of the questions I got, I know logically that I can't control what other people think about me, but I still obsess over it. How do you actually let go? Well, I think this is an interesting thing because so many of us want to be liked or appreciated or seen in a certain light. For me, what I always do is I come back to brass tacks. I can't control other people. And one thing that I heard, and I wish I knew where I heard it from, but it's basically other people's opinions of me is not my business. It's just not my business. That has everything to do with them, and it has nothing to do with me. And I liked the phrase change because sometimes I'm like, well, I can't control them. So obviously, their perception of me doesn't really, Why am I getting upset? I can't control that. But I feel like this kind of cute little word change of like, it's not really any of my business. Like they have a right to their opinion. They have a right to their freedom of expression as well. Do I like some of the things that are said about me or thrown my way? Maybe not. But being able to have that space of like, you know what, it's actually not my business. I'm going to let that go has built a little bit more of that ability to release for me. So I think Tammy had sent that question in. Maybe go ahead and try that. It's one thing that kind of pops into my head as I start to get worked up with things of like, oh, not my business. Not my business, has nothing to do with me and zero control over that. So why am I wasting my energy? Deeper dive with that, if that's not working, is you really have to look at what you're attached to. And that was like the third and final piece that I put out last week. And that was such a huge thing for me because I had worked with all these different tools to let this negative projection go. And that's the one thing that really did it when I looked at, well, what am I attached to here? Well, I'm attached to being right and for people to hear my side. So I keep replaying it in my head, like, well, maybe I should talk to this person or I should have said that. But more than anything, I think underneath it, it was me really being attached to the role that I have at work, which is seen as a leader and a very empathetic one at that. So when I'm cast to something other than that, it really rubs me the wrong way because I'm attached to being seen that way. If you pick it apart a little bit, you'll start to see how your ego is getting involved. Again, it doesn't make you wrong, just makes you human. But when you kind of go, okay, well, I'm upset because somebody thought that I was, rude to them. And my self-image, what I know to be true about myself is that I'm an empathetic leader. Well, where does what I know about me, that's kind of where I function from. Maybe it was an off moment, but I know I'm an empathetic person. Where does that start to rub with the ego part of me that's like, I have to be seen that way or else? And it's those or else's that pop into our head. Those are the dangerous ones that lets you know that ego is trying to protect something. Your self-image, your sense of safety, the acceptance. I think we have those underlying fears sometimes that we're just going to get cast out of society or our family or friend group. We go a little bit into like catastrophe thinking sometimes. So play with that a little bit. It's none of your business what other people think about you. That basically takes a lot of the edge off. But if you need that deeper dive, like I did, what I was attached to and looking at it from like an ego perspective of, if I'm not seen that way, what does that mean? That actually is what really loosened it up for me. So I hope that helps. Let me pull up another one here. This is a good one. So how do you tell the difference between healthy self-reflection and overthinking? For me, this is kind of like, it's all about your mind, right? Like, how do you tell the difference if you're overthinking versus like self-reflecting? But for me, it comes down to body signs with this. When you're in healthy self-reflection, your body should mostly be nice and calm and relaxed. You may hit some more triggering things that kind of, again, if you're peeling through layers, you may kind of have that come up. But when you are in self-reflection in a healthy way, you're able to let things go. You're able to step away. It doesn't have the same kind of like charge and stress response in your body. When you're in the overthinking, pay attention to like your the physiological signs of your body. Like, are you sweating? Is your heart rate increased? Do you feel tension anywhere? I kind of feel sometimes like a cat that has something attached to my tail. Like I keep trying to move really quick to try to get it off, but I still feel like something's almost chasing me or attached. So look at how your body is feeling as your mind is twirling. And if you start to notice that your body is getting worked up, you may be in that overthinking, and that's not super healthy. I think the easiest way to start working with that is just to redirect. I have a lot of energy right now. My brain is moving a million miles an hour. I cannot let it go. You probably need someplace else to put that mental energy. For me, I really like exercise classes where I have to pay attention, like a more intense yoga class or a dance class where I'm learning choreography. If I'm out walking or like on a treadmill and I have nothing to put my mental energy on, my brain will keep spinning. right? I also find like reading a good book is a very simple fix for this too, because again, you have to focus and your mind can't keep going in that trajectory. So if you are noticing this and you're like, oh God, I don't know if I'm overthinking this or if this is like leading me into better stuff, should I just keep thinking? One, how does your body feel, right? And if you're starting to feel stressed around it, even though it's not happening, you're probably in overthinking. And then try to find an outlet for that mind energy and see what actually will change from there. Okay. There's a couple of them that I got here, but I don't want to do too much because I feel like I overload these conversations sometimes. Oh, this is actually a really interesting one. There's a couple things with this. So I replay conversations for days afterwards on the regular. Is that anxiety, perfectionism, or just part of being a sensitive person? That's a great question. And this is so interesting because I feel like there's like a hairbreadth's difference sometimes between the three, right? Anxiety for me is really that big, like, oh, what if, it's that catastrophe thinking and it's that inability to really settle, right? We start to look at perfectionism. Perfectionism feels like fixing and fussing and kind of over plumping things to make them just so, right? Sometimes the mind chatter will be replaying constantly, and you may be getting anxious into the what ifs, like catastrophe thinking, what may be coming next. Sometimes you may be replaying it in a perfectionism way where you're trying to fiddle with little details and go, oh, if I had just said this, oh man, if I had just said this or just done this a little bit differently, everything would have been better. Or next time, that's what I'll do. The sensitive person, on the other hand, is going to have kind of a different thing with it. They may be feeling anxious. They may also be doing perfectionism, and it's very difficult sometimes to tell, but there's like this almost external winding. For me, I call it my wind up toy energy, like a spinning top. I get worked up. A lot of times, if you're very, very sensitive, you're not just processing your emotions around what happened. You're not just picking up on maybe your thoughts that are spinning. You may be picking up not only the other person you had the negative interaction with, or the positive one. Remember, that's part of it too, that you don't feel at ease with. You also may be picking up the stuff that they're going through, but also the people surrounding the conversation as well. And also, like, if people are trying to get their tribe involved, when the gossip starts and you try to get people on your side, or if you have an argument with a group, you may be picking up on multiple energies that way. Also, sometimes if you get triggered deep enough, it's not just the one replay that's going through your head. The energy and the stress and the emotions can start to come up from things that we went through in the past. When you're a sensitive person, you are just more aware than other people. You don't just see the one breath of it, you kind of see the whole thing. But with that comes a lot of physical and emotional processing and sensations. I think to pick it apart, you can kind of look at how I categorized it, right? Like the anxiety is the stress response, the what if, and the catastrophe thinking, usually forward projection. Coming into more the perfectionism, that's a little bit more of like, ooh, if I could just do this a little bit better, if I just had that, right? It's not as stressy, but there's still a need to kind of fuss and fiddle with it. The sensitive person, it's going to be way more amped up, and you may actually feel like that top that gets spun and can't quite settle. If you are feeling like that, you really have to look at how much of what you're going through actually has to do with you. If you read my last piece in this series, I talked about trying to put myself in the right role. And what I mean by that is, like, I use the analogy of like being in a play or up on a TV screen or a movie where being cast a certain way to people makes you kind of larger than life. It makes you the star of the show for a little bit, and all the energy gets sent your way. And it can feel like that. It gets super overwhelming and super stressy, right? So what do we need to do with that? Well, we need to put ourselves in the right role, which is putting ourselves in the context of the person's life. This is just one moment on the screen. You may be in a zoomed in moment, right? Camera and the spotlight are on you in a big picture. That only lasts a second. Eventually, the story will continue. And the story was continuing before you entered the scene, too, right? When you're able to kind of just start to take yourself and shrink yourself into the role in the greater scheme of things, this sensitive thing starts to lessen up. I feel like so many sensitives really get in kind of a pickle when they let themselves be blasted all the time, where the energy is very intense. They're always the star of the show. They don't really have an outlet. But a lot of times that's really born from this intensity of thinking it's always going to be that way, that there's always a spotlight on us. It feels that way, but it's actually not necessarily true. So if that oversensitivity is starting to kick up, or you identify as someone who is sensitive, they're more empathic, you feel things a little bit deeper. You may have kind of just more like emotional things that start to pop up around situations. I'd really start to ask yourself, how much are you processing for other people? And how much are you allowing yourself to stay under that spotlight in that zoomed in focus for too long when it's not necessary for you to be so? Even right now, let's just do an exercise. Take one upset you had this week, one difficult interaction, positive or negative, doesn't matter, wherever you interacted with somebody. It felt really uncomfortable afterwards, or like you had to be a certain way. You didn't really feel free, right? So just get the sense of that. And I want you to imagine yourself on a movie screen in that moment. And I want you to have the camera zoom in very close to your face, bright light on you, total spotlight moment, right? And get kind of the oversensitive excess energy with that. Blah, kind of like splat on the screen, right? Stuck. So now I want you to actually take that camera angle and I want you to pull out, zoom out, kind of like you're getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Almost so you're fading at least in line with everybody else, if not a little further into the background. And can you also picture the stage lights or the screen lights getting a bit dimmer? So it's not a harsh spotlight anymore. It's a little bit softer. And can you just keep shrinking your role in this, whether you're the savior or the fixer, whether you're the villain, whatever it was that had you projected on? Can you just slowly let yourself loosen from that role by shrinking it, shrinking it, shrinking it? This, I think, is an amazing technique. It works on many different layers. Honestly, at the core of my work, I think a lot of it really has to do more with the energy of the situation. But there's ways to just kind of use these little tricks to change your mindset and really release emotions as well. But being able to do these exercises when you feel overwhelmed, I have found have been super, super helpful. Being able to then kind of be like, my mind isn't just saying, okay, you're over exaggerating, you're in the spotlight right now, it feels super intense. That's a cognitive way to come about it. Cool. But if you need a little extra, especially if you run more sensitive, actually play with this exercise. And you can play with the visual part of it, the lights dimming and the camera zooming back out and you getting smaller and smaller. And then you can also start to play or at least notice the energy that changed. Instead of being zappy and very intense and kind of suffocating, it starts to loosen up and it starts to get more diffuse. And with these practices, you start to get more breathing room. So the next time someone comes and projects at you, because it's going to happen, that's just the way things work. But the next time it occurs, you'll have these tools and you'll be able to go, wow, the spotlight came on and they zoomed in on me and I feel super, super, super sensitive and overwhelmed. I know how to handle this. I'm going to make that camera zoom back out, and I'm going to let the lights dim. And I'm going to keep doing that until I can find a sense of space between me and the other person, and a sense of space in my own body so that I can actually come back home to myself. Okay. So these were a lot of different tools and techniques. Please leave me some comments if you're watching now or way into the future. This is content just for you guys, my paid subscribers. I'll also be releasing my Sensitive Soul Survival Guide next week. I'm doing the 3-part intro series for everybody, but there's a 10-part series with more specific tools. So that will be available for all of you, just as a thank you for being here and to keep this conversation going. Yes, we talk a lot about a sensitivity in this community. Honestly, that's what I kind of thought my role was, especially after my book came out. I really looked at mental health and sensitivity and the overlap between the two. But I've come to realize, after talking to so many people over so many years, that the origin stories are different. And it's a window into a broader conversation that's really more about self-trust, not just self-empowerment, but really self-expression. How do we not only accept ourselves, but actually start to speak up for ourselves, make our needs known, and show up in the world in a way that we feel free to do so? And how do you handle these times in our lives when you're interacting with people and you feel less than expressed? It's what happened to me, and I'm just so happy I was able to share my journey with it, and more to come. So have some grace with yourself if you're going through it, but leave me some comments down below, especially if you like the question format, if you like the exercises, just so I can start tailoring some of this for you guys. Okay? All right. Happy Thursday. I'll see you soon.